think Milette and I are both from technical backgrounds. So, as Milette said, she's from a maths background and I'm from a machine learning background. So, I think we know what it means to be like a technical woman, if that makes sense, within those spaces, and also know that the sort of adversity within those spaces as well that we've had to deal with. So, we have this thesis that if someone has had to go through this technical journey within a very male dominated space, they probably are very high potential, if that makes sense.
The whole point of kind of venture is that it's supposed to be innovative and it's supposed to be cutting edge, and I don't see how you can do that when it's the same group of people who are creating all the products and controlling where all the money goes. Then you're not going to have innovation and you're not going to have truly groundbreaking ideas that are really creative and that are really different.
I'm Alicia, and I'm with Seraph and the Seraph Compass, and this is an interview with Tech Bros, which is an accelerator based in Oxford, London, UK area. And this is also an ongoing series of interviews that we're doing with the Seraph Compass, which, as if you're watching this, you probably know is an educational hub for all things venture investing. So with that, I think let's go ahead and start with introductions from the two of you lovely ladies here. Whoever would like to start, please begin.
Hi, my name is Milette. I have a background in pure maths. So I did a PhD in pure maths at Leeds, which is in the north of England, if anyone is not familiar with kind of the geography. And throughout that time, I worked a bit in VC. So I did my very first ever internship in Hong Kong in VC, paused the PhD for a summer, went to do that, loved it. So the following year, I did the same thing in Berlin. And after I finished my PhD, I took a bit of a detour through classical music and went to the Royal Academy of Music for 2 years to do a master's, but then ended up back in VC. So I went to work at Entrepreneur First as first a talent investor, which is on the investment side and the talent side and the accelerator side. And then I actually did the program as well afterwards as a cohort member. So I saw all the different sides of it. And then, founded the Tech Bros shortly afterwards with Sedinum.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Sedinum, Sedi for short. I was born and bred in South Africa and I did my undergraduate studies here. So I did that in economics and statistics. And then I worked for just under 2 years as a data scientist at a bank before moving over to the UK to do my master's in machine learning. So I did that at Cambridge as a Google DeepMind scholar. And then towards the end of that, I met Milette, who just started the Tech Bros, and we just felt very aligned over the vision for it. So post that, I decided to full-time co-found the Tech Bros.
Amazing. You both are like so very accomplished and have so many different points of expertise. I think, like, especially going into like music and then back to venture is like not one that I think a lot of people that are involved in venture are naturally more creative. And so it's somewhat makes sense, but that's a big jump back and forth.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. So maybe tell me a little bit more about the Tech Bros, because that's what I would love to talk about and share with our audience, because I think what you guys are doing is really, one, unique, but two, really needed. Like, it's something that there's a lot of disparity in funding and who's founding startups. And I think that what you guys are doing and your focus is really important. So maybe can you give me a little bit of background about where the idea for the Tech Bros came from and what you're hoping to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I think because I had this kind of background in VC and then working at Entrepreneur First as well, I had a bit of an insight into what the industry looked like. And I think actually for me, one of the big things was coming from classical music where I'd been for a very long time. I think everyone knows in classical music that you're playing with the net down if you're a male singer. Like, it's just easier in so many ways. And that's just accepted. And everyone knows that it's a very old-fashioned industry. There's a lot of sexism, but it's just, everyone just kind of goes, that's kind of part of it. We all know what we signed up for. And I went from that into tech being like, this is obviously going to be the complete opposite. There's no way that's going to be the same because singing is so female dominated. So that's why it's easier to be a man, but that's not going to be the case here. And honestly, it was just a complete shock when it wasn't the same and it wasn't completely 50-50. And it was instead like 90-10 or some crazy. Yeah. So I think that was a really big kind of a bit of a wake-up call almost into something here has to change. And then, just generally throughout my time being involved in that space, particularly post having been in the classical music space, I just was really feeling very frustrated with the way that things are. And I feel like the whole point of kind of venture is that it's supposed to be innovative and it's supposed to be cutting edge. And I don't see how you can do that when it's the same group of people who are creating all the products and controlling where all the money goes. Then you're not going to have innovation and you're not going to have truly groundbreaking ideas that are really creative and that are really different. Basically, and the kind of concept of naming it as well, the Tech Bros, there's, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a Instagram page that's like for crypto women, and I think they had an ironic name, and that page was really popular. And I heard about that and then was like, surely someone's done the same with the name Tech Bros. That feels like such an obvious one.
Yeah, I found it funny, and I like your branding, just personally. But yeah, I found it quite funny.
I think ChatGPT described our branding as, do you remember, Sadie? It was like dark neon something.
Neon, yeah.
Yeah, good choice. Honestly, I think it's trendy, and I also think that I like the a little bit of ironic humor to just make light of what's happening, because I think that's the best way to deal with it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So how did you guys decide to go into the deep tech space in terms of your accelerator? Because I know that the vast majority, I can't say the vast majority, most tech founders are going to be male, just because they are, like, if you go into an engineering classroom, it's 95% of them are going to be male. But I think a lot of people still focus a little bit on female founders as like the business component, or the, like, you know, HR first hire kind of managers. So how did you guys decide on focusing on the tech part of that?
I think Milette and I are both from technical backgrounds. So as Milette said, she's from a maths background and I'm from a machine learning background. So I think we know what it means to be like a technical woman, if that makes sense, within those spaces, and also know that the sort of adversity within those spaces as well that we've had to deal with. So we have this thesis that if someone has had to go through this technical journey within a very male dominated space, they probably are very high potential, if that makes sense. And then also there's a lot of accelerators catering towards maybe female founders, but not tech focused. There's a lot of accelerators that are tech focused, but not specifically female founder focused. So there's this very glaringly obvious gap, which caters towards like the intersection of that. So both female and technical. So that's where we think that we fit in. And yeah, that's essentially that.
Just to add on to that as well, that because Alicia, you mentioned like a lot of first hires, or women often make up the positions of COO,
Yes.
or there are certain positions that are seen as more, that's where the woman comes in. But those are typically the ones that they don't hold as much power, they don't hold as much equity. And I think when it comes to actually disrupting the industry, it's much more important that we have the people who are actually running things and who own like the vast majority of the startup need to be the women if we want to say that we're backing women.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really important point, and exactly aligns with my experience. I came out of my finance degree and I rolled right into working for startups, and I was in the COO position, right? So I was like hire number 3, like, and so you end up with very minority equity, and then you end up doing all the hard work that nobody else wants to do. So, and then the combination of those two things, because I'm not technical, obviously, and so I'm good at being COO, but it doesn't give you a position, like it doesn't give you co-founder level meaningfulness in terms of your background experience and like what you're doing, but you're doing the work. And so it ends up like what you just said in terms of where women typically slot in. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so can you tell me a little bit more about your experiences as technical women in the field, and also how you curated experiences, events, things across the UK? But because that's something that I think is really just telling in terms of your like traction and how many people have showed up to these events and everything that you guys are doing. There's really a need there. And so can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as Sadie mentioned earlier, because of our own backgrounds, we have this perspective where I think we have a sense of what will appeal to that demographic. And I also think it's easier for us to attract that demographic because we're similar to that demographic. So when people come to an event, I think often when you have events that are geared towards people who are technical or women in whichever group, often they're not run by people from that group, just because the types of people who like to run events are typically not the same types of people who do engineering or whatever it is. So you have this kind of disjointness where you have people who are trying to get another group of people that they're a bit distant from to do something. And that's a bit harder. It's a bit of a harder sell. Whereas I think we're very much in the trenches. We're running the Tech Bros pretty much as a startup. Like our experience of it is very similar to the experience that we're selling to other people and saying, you should try this. We're doing it right now. We can tell you what we've learned already so far and give you all the tips of what we've found. And yeah, I think that's something that's really helped to create this community. And then I also think the other thing is we're very selective about who we approve for the event. So we do, as you say, there is a lot of interest actually, and that's something that shows us that we are doing something that it's needed because there is traction and because women in STEM do want to found companies, and we found that they want to found it more than I think people realize that they do, or more than investors realize. But it's just getting that last step of deciding that it's what you want to do and then actually doing it and getting people over that bridge. So that's what we're targeting. everything towards. And I think having a room that's quite curated, where you know that you're going to go and everyone else is going to be from a similar background, also technical, also very hardworking, high achieving. And we've also tapped a lot into the university system where everyone has something in common already because they're all from the same university or the same city. And that again makes, when you feel like you have something in common with a group, you definitely feel more like it's a community that you want to be a part of, I think, as opposed to like just anyone who has an interest in this thing, which is often the case when you run events, I think.
Yeah. And what have been the theme of your events so far? Are they more like networking, educational, and how does that flow into the accelerator that you guys are launching?
Yeah, so we've had a host of different setups. We've run hackathons, panels, and workshops mainly, and then also thematic events. So we have like the series of hackathon that we ran across the UK. It's called the Bad Ideas Build Day. And really what that is that we sort of place people into groups. They come up with a really bad tech product idea, like the worst idea that they can think of. And then we switch those ideas around, and then each group would build the best version of this bad product idea. And then essentially what we realized and what this sort of showed is that demystifying this process of starting and actually building and doing something and realizing that you don't need the perfect idea to build something that's actually really good. That was really great also for trialing out working relationships with different people. Then we had the thematic events we've had women in deep tech, women in AI, and women in robotics. So very focused areas, and those are focus areas for our accelerator as well. But really, mainly the point of the events to date have been to create the community, to build the community, and then to also allow for an organic environment for people to meet their potential co-founder so that they can apply to accelerator with the co-founder if they want to. So really, it's just this, it's a pipeline into the accelerator program.
Okay, wonderful. And have you guys fully, like, the structure for the accelerator, it's fully mapped out and everything? And remind me the timeline when you're launching and everything around the accelerator, because I think that's important. You guys are, I was talking to, we did another interview yesterday, a friend of mine at this point, because I've known for a lot of years, but what we talked about and part of that interview is that he wants to raise a venture fund starting in 2027, but he's got a syndicate that he's very active in, and he's got a long history in venture. And he talked about what he's doing now. He's got like a podcast, and he's doing the syndicate, and he like just is going to a bunch of conferences because he's laying the groundwork for what he's launching next. And I think what you guys have done really well in this during this process is like start to lay that groundwork in terms of events and branding and community. And so not that the culmination will be the accelerator program, because I'm sure you guys can take this way farther and it'll be years, and I'll talk to you 5 years from now, and you'll tell me about your 5 funds that you've raised, and like it'll be wonderful. But tell me more about the accelerator and how you guys are planning to structure that, and like when it's launching and everything behind that. So just if people want to do something actionable for you in terms of like sharing or investing or anything like that, they can have something concrete to work with.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
So it's an 8-week program. It starts on the 7th of July till the 31st of August. The first 2 weeks are in a hacker house. So it's all the participants living together, working together, building together, iterating quickly, and really just a fun sort of experience, but also a very focused amount of time so that people can build out the first version of their products. And then we have a 6-week hybrid format so people can work from wherever they want to, but then we have weekly in-person events in London throughout that 6 weeks, and then this all sort of culminates in a demo day where we'll invite investors to come and look at the products that people have built and for the participants to pitch to them.
Amazing. Are you guys thinking, how many people are you accepting, or like, I suppose how many teams are you accepting? And are you looking for solo founders, or like how are you guys looking at solo founders versus co-founders versus teams of 3? I don't really see that a ton, but how are you guys looking at that from a selection perspective? And do you also, I know there are different models for accelerators, so like Antler maybe is one that tries to match people while they're in the program. Is that something that you guys are trying to do too?
No, so basically the thing that we do differently from things like Antler and EF is that we're not matching people on the cohort. We do accept solo teams. So if you apply solo, you're applying as a solo team. So you're not applying with the view of being matched. You're applying saying, I'm going to do this whole thing by myself, which is a lot of hard work, but we have seen some successful female founders that we've met and spoken to and who have done very, very well. So I think that it's very doable. Our requirements are that the entire founding team must be female and technical as well. Although you don't have to be a software developer, you don't have to be a specific kind of technical. So that's quite a broad definition of technical. And then the reason that we've had all these events so that we can help with the matching process. So if someone reaches out to us and says, I want to join, but I don't have a co-founder. We've put people together already in group chats, things like that. We're starting to think about how we can have an online community. So through something like Discord, maybe, where we can actually have everyone who's in our community who we've vetted and who we would, in theory, accept able to chat so that they can then figure out when to apply. But yeah, it's not something we're doing on the cohort itself. And then in terms of the program and bigger plans for us, because I know you mentioned in 5 years you might be chatting to us and we might be have 10 funds or whatever, as you said. So basically, we're looking at two types of investors for the accelerator. The first one is sponsors. So that wouldn't be necessarily any sort of equity investment, but basically people who might be interested in sponsoring the program itself. And then we're separately speaking to kind of angels and other kinds of investors who might be interested in investing in the companies that come out of the program and kind of pooling all of those people together. And so that's for the accelerator. And then down the line, we're also thinking about when will be the right time and putting out feelers for launching our own fund.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah, I think launching a fund on the back of this would be a wonderful thing to do, but I'm always one for women raising funds. What are you guys most excited about in terms of your accelerator or things that you have going on? And what is most exciting to you about the traction that you've seen so far?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You want to take this?
Yeah, I think in terms of the actual program, I think the Hacker House portion of it is something that we're really looking forward to, just because everyone we've mentioned it to, all the conversations we've had around it with participants, potential participants, it has garnered a lot of excitement. And I think people are just really excited to have that focused time to really just knock everything out and build something.
That was my first thought about it too, was like, that sounds like so much fun. Not even that, like, it sounds like it's going to be work, right? But it's not something that you as an adult get to do very often.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like a great time.
Exactly, yeah. So I think we're also equally looking forward to it, and also just to run that, I think we're very excited about that. And then just in terms of the events that we've run and the people that we've met, I think it's just been such a journey and such like an interesting and exciting journey throughout. And I think every single time we run an event, we like don't know who exactly, how many people are actually going to show up, that sort of thing. But every single time we just like blown away by the women in the room and just like the potential that everyone has. So I think it's just an ongoing level of every single event we run, every single interaction we have. It's just like a new spark of excitement.
Yeah, and Milette, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I'd say one thing I'm really looking forward to, particularly with the program compared to what we've done, is I love what we've been doing so far. And as Sadie said, there's always so many exciting people in the room, and it's nice to meet so many different people as well and be constantly working across the country and engaging with all these different communities. But I can't wait to have one cohort where it's like the same group of people that we're working with for 8 weeks and really going more in depth with that group and helping them on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's always fun too, because you can build strong relationships. Whereas sometimes seeing someone at an event 2 or 3 times, like that's one thing, but also working with them on a week-to-week basis and helping them develop and helping them move forward is always like something a little different and more impactful than the events-based stuff. So cool. If you guys had any advice for people, particularly women trying to break into either tech or women who are interested in starting their own companies, what would you say to them as far as directions to go and things to look out for, things to do, things to absolutely avoid? I think there's always room for experienced people sharing insights that you guys have gone through, insights that you've gotten through things that you've gone through, just because it's why repeat the same mistakes. And so the more we can share the things that have been helpful, I think the better it is for everybody. So is there anything that you do to those kinds of women who are trying to start companies?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys.
You both have perspectives. Both of you will go.
Who's gonna go first? Yeah, I think there's no way. I don't know how to phrase it because it sounds very cliche, and I think
That's okay.
you hear it again and again, but really like the only way to found is to found, and the only way to build a product is to build a product, and there's no sort of shortcut or route that can prepare you for it, if that makes sense. So it really is just about deciding that you're going to do it and then doing it. And I think we've even found that with the Tech Bros, like everything we've done, we've just decided, okay, this is happening, and then we do it. And then somehow we've done it. We were reflecting on the sort of first 3 months of this year and sort of the objectives we set for ourselves. And we said, okay, we're going to run a few events across the UK. And then to look back, and we've run 10 events in 10 weeks. We just like never thought that would actually materialize. But it's just like interesting that when you actually say something and then you put in the effort to make it happen, how it actually just does happen. Yeah, it sounds super cliche, but I think it is just actually putting yourself out there and doing the thing that you say you want to do. Yeah.
You know what? I don't think that's cliche. Okay, might be cliche, but I think that's really important in that you can materialize any version of yourself or any version of your life that you would like to materialize. Like you just have to then go do that thing. And you have to be your own. I think something that women struggle with is like being your own credibility, like being your own, just saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. And just by nature of saying that, like people will take you serious, but you have to also take yourself serious. And when you say you're doing something, put a brand behind it, right? Build a website, build out your LinkedIn, all of those kinds of things. And it's especially true for startups where you don't necessarily have going to raise a pre-seed round when you don't have a product yet is really hard to do. But like you can put a website behind it, you can get some people behind it, you can start to talk to customers even if you don't have a product. Like it's something that I think it's cliche, but like worth saying. So thank you, Seti, for that.
Yeah. And I guess I could add to that to build on top of what Seti said, that you're not going to get permission from anyone. This is one of those things where it's very different from usually when, let's say you want to apply for a job somewhere, it's very much down to someone else and you try for it. And then if they say no, then that's that done, or you can maybe try again. But here that's why I think grit is so important and perseverance. And something Paul Graham says from Y Combinator is that the kind of companies that he sees fail are the ones where they've basically given up themselves. And a lot of it is just how long are you going to persevere for, even if the odds look like they're going against you, because no one is going to give you permission to do it. You have to give yourself permission and just be like, as Zeddy said, this is what's happening. And you're either with me or you're not with me. And so many people are going to try and dissuade you from the entire foundation of what you're doing. They're going to be like, have you thought about just doing the entire thing differently? And if you listen to all of those people, then you would be changing your entire business every other day. But then also, if you don't listen to anyone and you're just like, I know what I'm doing, then that also means that you might end up doing something that even after 10 years doesn't go anywhere because you were just doing the wrong thing. So I think it's really hard to find that balance of like, who do I listen to? Which advice do I take and which advice don't I take? And I don't know if there's a simple answer to that other than go with your gut, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point in terms of like mentorship and who you take advice from. Probably not exclusive to women, but like when you have families or when you have like people who are either depending on you or people that have been like helping you, like your parents or your siblings or something through your whole life, and then you step out to do something a little bit different in terms of founding a company, and then they're like, what in the world are you doing? Especially you guys, I'm sure you've experienced it, like you have technical expertise, you're both very smart women, very accomplished, and now you're going out to start this new organization when you could go get like a very stable job if you wanted to, stability. Woo. And I think that as much as people might try to sway you into doing something that you don't feel aligns, they have good reasons to do it sometimes too, where they're like, I want you to be stable, right? I want you to be in a place where you're growing and you're not doing risky things. But yeah, it's a hard balance to find. Do you guys have, like yourselves, do you both have mentors, or is that not something that you guys have pursued? Just because I'm curious what if people think mentors are like a formal thing that they should have or not.
I think I have informal mentors. So I have I have one mentor that I met during a formal program in my undergraduate degree who I still keep in contact with, and I still view in that mentorship role. But I think a lot of the advice and opinions I get are from mainly just conversations and informal conversations I have with people, and not like a structured mentorship session that I set up and then have recurring. So yeah, and I think also it's important. I think basically what Milette was saying about it's important who you take advice from. I think even in a mentorship setting, the sort of mentor you have should be, I don't know how to phrase, but almost like the person should be in the role that you're aspiring to be in, if that makes sense. Because if you have a mentorship from someone who's a secure, stable job, they're not going to say, yeah, you should go find something, for example. So I think that's also really important, like who you drawing advice from. But yeah, I would say that I have it more in a sense of informal conversations and nothing set in stone. But that's not to say I'm for or against like formal mentorship. It's just how my life is currently set up. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think formal mentorship is a bit overrated. And I think it's one of those things where, again, it's that thing of asking for permission. And I think people think that, oh, if I've got a mentor, then I'm allowed to do X, Y, Z. I wouldn't necessarily say I have mentors particularly. I think there are people who Sedi and I have worked with who really support what we do, and then sometimes we have chats with them, and I think that's really helpful. And there are people who I've worked with also throughout my time at EF when I was there who were really supportive, and so I think that's all really nice. And helpful. And actually, I would say a lot of the best advice I got was from people who were around my age, who weren't, or even younger, not necessarily from people who like have been doing stuff for many years. There's been people who have said, for example, I had a colleague when I was at EF who I wanted to set something up, and this wasn't the Tech Bros, this was something before that. And she was like, I think you should just do it. And then think of it as if like you are the train and people can either get on with you or it's going to go off without them. And I don't know, that phrasing really helped. But I would say the person who I probably talk to most is my husband about this. He's just so supportive. And I think if you have someone close that can, like, you can bounce stuff off and get advice on things, I'd say he's like my mentor in a way, even though he's not even in this space, but he's just so supportive of everything that we're doing. But yeah, I don't think you need to go out and find yourself a mentor and then you start. Again, once you start something, those people will find you.
Yeah. And I also, something there that I think may warrant pointing out too is that a lot of like first-time founders think that they do need mentors or formal advisors, and a lot of times those advisors want equity in exchange for their advice, and I don't know that is always the best route. I've seen that go bad like a lot of times. I don't know if you guys have seen that as well, but it's one of those that you have to take it really delicately. And to your point about not, because feeling like I have an advisor and I can call them anytime, like gives you a layer of security that if you need that layer of security, you may not be doing the right thing. It may not be for you because you should be able to do it by yourself. It's hard, but like you don't necessarily need it. People that help you skip steps are great. Skip steps in the process, but like the formal advisor thing, especially particularly for compensation, I think people should watch out for. It's just me. And I know some people have that and it's been helpful for them, and I just, yeah, depending. Wonderful. So I think that's all the questions that I had for you guys. Is there any way that the audience, so the Serif Compass has, I don't know, 12,000-ish subscribers. A lot of them are angel investors. A lot of them are venture capitalists. A lot of students, people just learning about venture. Is there anything that they can help you guys with on your journey? Because I always like to put out, this is your informal call for help. If people get to the end and they see it and they can help you, they will. But is there anything that you guys need on this journey as you go down it?
I think any investors we would love to chat to who are interested in what we're doing. And I'm sure there's lots of different ways in which they would be able to help and we can have an individual conversation. But as you mentioned before, we're pooling together any investors who are interested theoretically in investing in the companies that come out of our accelerator. And so anyone who likes what we're doing and is thinking, oh, I want to be involved somehow, just reach out to us and yeah, we can take it from there. Anyone who isn't an investor, we're interested in speaking to people in lots of different like tech companies, for example, about sponsorship options. So that's something that could be really helpful as well. And even people who aren't in either of those, but who have strong technical communities, just spreading the word and sharing what it is that we're doing. Those are all helpful things.
Really wonderful. And I think what you guys are doing is fantastic because it's really needed. And the structure that with which you've chosen to do it, I think is also something that's unique and interesting to people. Yeah, that's all we've got for now.
Oh, thanks so much. Thank you so much.